Disclaimer: the following episode contains spoilers for New Mutants. Don't go crying to your mum if we spoil it for you. You've been warned. Welcome to Podcapers, the official podcast of A Place to Hang Your Cape. And this week, well, that was anticlimactic. Cue the music! Hello there, Capers, and as I said, welcome to Podcapers, the official podcast for A Place to Hang Your Cape. My name's Scott James Merridew, and this is the show where we talk about various geek and nerd-related topics, and are joined each week by a very special different guest. Welcome back to the show, Mr. Mark Russell.
Greetings, comrades.
I get what that's in reference to, but, I mean, at least you made a reference to it. The movie certainly didn't.
Even though her last name is Rasputin.
Rasputin, sister of the Russian X-Man. I don't know. Anyway, okay, so we're gonna get into all of that, but first a couple of things. First of all, don't worry, we're going to review Mulan. Myself, yeah, we're gonna fucking get into that, and we've got some stuff to say about that. But honestly, we've been waiting for New Mutants far longer than we've been waiting for Mulan. At least I have. So
me too.
And I feel like, I say Marvel, Fox, Disney, whoever's in charge right now, basically just sort of farted this movie out. It took us all by surprise. I was just like, the cinema near me only just opened up in the last couple of weeks. And so I sort of saw that. I was like, ooh, well, now that they're opened, I better check it out. Just, make sure, A, that they're adhering to social distancing, COVID-19 safety protocols, which thankfully they are. My cinema, I don't know about yours, Mark, or anyone else's.
Oh, yeah, mine was too. Ours was empty,
Is yours like an Odeon or a Review?
Yeah, we went to the Odeon.
Okay, so I went to the Cineworld, and they were very adamant, like, hand sanitizers there, you got to wear face masks, except when you're eating, which kind of defeats the purpose, to be perfectly honest.
Well, it's weird, because when we went in, we wore the face masks until we got into the screening room, and because there was like 10 people in there, they were so far spread out, no one was wearing the mask, so...
Well, that's the other thing. My cinema also said, make sure there are 2 empty seats on either side of you, and unless you're in a group, which people adhere to. They were very clear.
We had a row.
Very clear.
We had a whole row to ourselves.
So I think there was only like one other guy on my row, and he was just like at the far end, so I was nowhere near him.
So we were nearly close to getting the whole cinema screen to ourselves.
Good for you. I mean, there was very few people, and that's the thing that a lot of people, like when it was announced on the A Place to Hang Your Cape Slack channel that the movie was out, a lot of people were just like, really? I completely forgot about that. It took a lot of people by surprise. There's very little fanfare, which I guess makes sense. Maybe there was fanfare and we just happened to miss it.
I was the fanfare.
You were the fanfare, basically.
I was like, oh my god, New Mutants is out at last! I was parading around my house. Because I hadn't been to the cinema in 6 months, but
probably, yeah. I mean, God, it was the first time I'd been to the cinema since since about February, early January. I think the last film I saw at the cinema was Dark Waters. That Mark Ruffalo movie.
I saw Sonic.
It's
last was,
Yeah.
I will admit, when I went into the screening room and I saw the big screen, I had a kind of I paused for a moment. It's like, I'm back. It's wonderful.
Yeah, we're back. But having said that, here's the thing, Capers. We are going to review a movie that is out in cinemas, and if by the time you get around to listening to this show and it's available for streaming or whatever, here's the thing. If you don't feel comfortable going to see this movie, given what's happening in the world right now, or you feel that your cinema isn't providing the necessary precautions to make it a safe viewing experience, don't go and see it. I'm sure most of you already know that, but just in case it needs to be said, don't go and see it, because no movie, no matter how good, how bad, or how in between, is worth catching COVID-19 over. Nothing is worth that. And honestly, the only reason I went to go and see this was because I knew I was going to review it. So, and I imagine that's a pretty similar reason why you did it, Mark.
Well, that and I didn't want to see it.
Yeah, so, I mean, here's the thing. We're at the point right now, we're in a sort of nebulous time. In the UK right now, there's a bunch of mini lockdowns going on in specific geographic locations. There isn't one where I am, but I imagine it's only a matter of time, and I don't want to contribute to that, and I don't want... It's one of those tricky things where you don't have to go out only when it's essential, but at the same time, if you do go out for something non-essential, it makes you feel kind of guilty. I don't know what the best thing is, but the point, I think just what you have to focus on is your own personal safety, and if you don't feel safe going out to see this movie, don't go and see this movie. Okay, just don't. Wait for it to come out streaming, or don't, just as long as you feel okay with that. And this is why I was so glad that you saw it, Mark, because I wanted to ask a few of my fellow Place to Hang a Cape people if they wanted to review it with me, but I didn't want anyone to feel like they had to go out and see it if they didn't want to.
Oh, it's a good thing you have such a kind friend, then.
Yeah,
I want to go
exactly.
sit myself. Actually, no, my first priority was to go sit myself. You're third on the list.
Fair enough. So, yeah, we'll get into New Mutants in a bit. But before we have to do that, we have to talk about something rather important that unfortunately makes me angry. Last week, we talked about Chadwick Boseman, what a great inspiration he was, his tragic passing, and how there's been an outpouring of support and well-wishing and grief from both the acting community, his fellow castmates in the MCU, and also just the world in general, and how it was a really good and positive thing. Some people thought, I wonder if I could find a way to ruin all that and make it all about me.
Oh God, who's done it?
No, because here's the thing. Elizabeth Olsen, who plays the Scarlet Witch, did not put out a tweet or an Instagram message or anything like that relating to Chadwick Boseman's death. Some people chose to interpret that as her throwing him shade, or scorning him, or being glad that he was dead for some reason, even though that's a totally stupid reaction to have, and basically bullied her off of social media. Well done, pseudo-fanboys. I call you pseudo-fanboys because, let's be honest, you're not actual fanboys, you're just bastards. You bullied another female actor off of the internet. Well done. Do you feel proud about yourself? Do you think that's what Chadwick Boseman would want? I don't think it is. Here's the thing, you absolute motherfuckers. Different people grieve in different ways. Apparently, Elizabeth Olsen isn't one to post on social media that much, a trait that, frankly, she and I have in common. I go on social media to catch up with people and stuff and to message people, but I don't post that often because, for various reasons. And I can understand her. Bear in mind, I didn't post on social media about Chadwick Boseman. I did a whole episode of Podcasts about it, but I did not do a Facebook tweet, whatever, about Chadwick Boseman. I didn't do that. And neither is she. And she's allowed to do that. If she tweeted something horrible like, I'm glad Chadwick Boseman is deaf, then fucking hell, yeah, sling plenty of shit her way. But she just said nothing. That's it. She just said nothing. And bear in mind, she's not obligated to say anything. A, again, as I said, different people grieve in different ways. And B, let's say she wasn't grieving. Maybe she didn't know Chadwick very well. Maybe she never had any extended or even small experiences with him. Maybe she didn't feel comfortable expressing grief over a person that she didn't know very well just for the sake of saying something. Maybe she thought it's better to let people who actually are experiencing this loss say things and just get out of the way and not try and hog the limelight. In fact, there could be 1,000,001 different reasons why she said nothing, and all of them are entirely justified. So for people to show such scorn and such hatred, and in the wake of a person's death, fucking death, and try and use that death and that grief as justification for attacking a person is nothing short of abhorrent human behavior, and you're all cunts.
It's like you call it human behavior.
Exactly. Yeah, it's.
Pathetic,
I hate using that word that I just said, but it's the only accurate word I can describe. How fucking dare you? It's an insult to Chadwick Boseman, an insult to his memory, an insult to his family, to his fans, and of course, to Elizabeth Olsen. So, on behalf of all the people who did such horrible things, Elizabeth Olsen, I'm sure you're not listening, but, just for the sake of it, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. They're not going to apologize, but I fucking will. I'm sorry that happened to you. It was wrong, and they're all complete and utter bastards. Fuck them. And it's just so... it's so... This was a positive thing. It was a tragic, horrible thing, but people were coming together and talking positively about a great man, and now suddenly, as per usual, sweeping wave of negative. I don't know what I expected out of the internet, but I guess my hopes for humanity just grew just a little bit too high just for a second there. That's my fault. I'm stupidly naive. It's just crazy. And also, it comes in the wake of another Marvel-related death. Sadly, the voice actor for Cyclops from the original X-Men cartoon, Norm Spencer, sadly passed away. And as someone who was a huge fan of the X-Men cartoon and also a huge Cyclops fan and who really liked his performance, I mean, it's that again, a complete and utter tragedy. It really, really is. Not a lot of people posting about him as much because, he wasn't as prolific as Chadwick Boseman. Don't see all those people attacking Elizabeth Olsen, championing him. Don't see all those people saying, oh, but what about Norm Spencer? And frankly, though, I'm glad, because that would be equally as negative. So, goodbye, Norm Spencer, and goodbye, Chadwick Boseman. You will both be sincerely missed, and it's tragic that you were both taken from us far too soon. Norm Spencer was in his 60s, but I'd say that's still too young. And, look, like I said, we deal with grief in different ways. However, it is your responsibility to try and present that grief in as positive way as you can. And I'm not trying to gatekeep or whatever people's behavior and stuff. You want to cry, go ahead and cry. You want to scream, go ahead and scream. You want to be angry, go ahead and be angry. But you can't direct that anger at people who don't deserve it just because they're not saying anything. It's really, really not okay. So now we've said that, now we can fucking move on and try and remember those two men with some dignity and some grace and some goddamn respect. But anyway, New Mutants. Thank you. New Mutants. God.
Took it long enough.
Yeah, fucking hell. Yeah. I mean, we could go into the production nightmare that has been this movie, but frankly...
All I want to do is make a good movie. Josh Boone just wanted to make a movie that he wanted to do, and they still wouldn't let him do it.
I mean, God, why would the studios care that much? I know that the X-Men franchise has been winding down to the point of basically non-existent, but this movie's just like, when a corpse shits itself? That's what New Mutants was. But then again, why would you care about that? Just let the shit be what itself, and it could turn out to be great. Great shit. And honestly, the premise of the movie I thought was rather cool. It's X-Men, it's mutants, it's superheroes, but it's horror. Well, as someone who is not a horror fan, I was actually looking forward to that. That sounded cool. That sounded intriguing. I was like, okay, yeah, I don't like horror, I don't like scary films, but you know what? They're trying something new, they're trying something different, and it's with characters that a lot of hardcore comic fans care about very much, but the rest of us, people who aren't that familiar, the more general fans, or people who aren't that into X-Men, they're not going to have any great attachment to fucking Cannonball. I mean, I have a great attachment to Wolfsbane because she was part of Peter David's excellent X-Factor run, so, I have that connection, but beyond that, I don't give a fuck about Danielle Moonstar. I know the character. Nothing against the character, but I don't really care that much. So they could have done anything they wanted with this. And what they did was make it middle of the road.
Middle of the road. Well,
I mean, I don't want to give away my thoughts about this movie too early, but here's the thing. This movie has got, at the time of recording, it's got 30% thereabouts on Rotten Tomatoes. It was 20 when it first came out, so it wasn't received very good. And honestly, this movie is fine. It's not good, it's not bad, it's not great, it's not terrible, it's just fine. It's one of those movies that is not a waste of your time when you go and see it, it's not a waste of time to talk about, but you're under no obligation to see it. Like, even, let's imagine that there was no COVID-19 panic, and there was the world operating as close to normal as it could ever get. And I said, I've been to see New Mutants. And Mark, you said, I haven't been to see New Mutants. I would not say, oh, you gotta go and see it, or I can't believe you haven't gone and see it. I'd be just like, okay. I thought it was alright. And here's the thing. Some people use that as a negative criticism of the movie, that somehow it not being fantastic or terrible is somehow a point against it. And I would say no, because here's the thing. Movies do not have an obligation to be exceptional. They do not have an obligation to be high art. They do not have an obligation to astound the audience or subvert expectations. In my mind, movies just have an obligation to not be bad. Ideally, they'd be good, but in an ideal world, they'd all be good. And I love it. I love it when films knock my socks off and provide an excellent, towering experience for me. But considering the amount of movies that we have nowadays, that's just impossible. Some movies are just going to be so-so. Yeah. And that's okay.
Yeah, I mean, films are subjective, aren't they? To everyone. Because, you could like a movie that's considered bad, and you could think a movie that's considered a classic is rubbish. It's subjective.
Yeah, but there's also objective parts to it, from a technical aspect, a writing aspect. But even then, so subjectively, this movie is okay. But I also think objectively, this movie is okay. So yes, you can find subjective likes and dislikes with any kind of movie, but the objectivity will always remain. You are fully allowed to dislike Citizen Kane. In fact, there are some things I don't like about Citizen Kane, even though it's arguably one of the best movies ever made. Here's the thing, though. You're allowed to do that, but the objective craftsmanship of the film is intact. If you know anything about filmmaking, you have to agree Citizen Kane is a very well-made movie.
Damn straight.
Yeah. And conversely, you could like Birdemic. I don't know who fucking would. What, kicked in the head by a horse as a child moron would actually like that movie. But you have to admit, filmmaking-wise, it's not very well made.
Yeah, I got through our thing didn't go very well, did it? But I got through the first 10 minutes of that robot man, just wandering through existence, and I wanted to throw myself out the window.
Yeah. So at least that's at least how I see movies. I hate it when people say, "Oh, because it's art, it's subjective." Yes, there is that element, but there's also a technical, so finger painting, for example, is subjective. No, because here's the thing. You could compare. You could like a finger painting done by a child in school to a Vincent van Gogh painting all you like, and you could prefer it all you like. But let's be honest, all the child did was stick their hand in some paint, slap it on some canvas, and they were done. Vincent van Gogh put a lot more time, effort, and dedication and talent into it. That's the kind of argument I'm making here. Well, I don't even know why I'm making that argument. I imagine most people understand it already. And also, like I said, the subjective and objective elements of this movie are the same. It's just okay. And on the one hand, I am kind of disappointed. I wanted it to be more than okay. But I can take it. Like, I didn't have a bad experience.
No, I enjoyed it. I mean, it's not the best story in the world, but actually, on that subject, did you feel like you were watching Glass?
Well, here's the thing, I haven't seen Glass.
Okay. So it's ironically, two of the actors are now X-Men veterans. So plus, Anya Taylor-Joy is in that movie. She's like, wait a minute, she was in a movie about a mental asylum, and now she's in a movie about a hospital with disturbed people having to have superpowers in both movies. That's interesting.
I mean...
Right. Where's Bruce Willis?
Is it... What do you call something when you're typecast, but it's not relating to characters, just relating to movies?
Genre cast, I don't know.
I mean, there's this thing called like Screen Queen, where you're like with like a female actor who's often in horror
Yeah,
films.
Jamie Lee Curtis.
Like the characters could be different, but she's often in horror films. I don't know. But anyway, so here's the thing. How familiar are you with the New Mutants comics, the characters themselves?
Well, I know of them, but I don't really pay any attention to them.
I mean, I'm exactly the same. I know of them. I know a bit about magic and Cannonball.
I mean, Cannonball was
like I said,
Cannonball's in X-Men Evolution, so I know him. Except he was white.
yeah. Oh, yeah. That's right. He was. Yeah, and also was Wolfsbane actually, though she wasn't focused on at all, which is a shame because I fucking love her characters. And like I said, especially in Peter David's X Factor. So I didn't really have that much attachment going in, but nevertheless, let's go in together.
Hooray!
So we start opening on Danny Moonstar, played by Blue Hunt, who is actually Native American.
Yay!
We have a Native American character played by a Native American person. Fuck you, Rooney Mara. Fuck you, Johnny Depp. We got it right for
Hooray!
once.
Bravo! How hard is it to do that? Like, I know. Let's go have Native American. Let's cast a white person.
It's not hard. It's not hard at all. And Blue Hunt. I mean, Blue Hunt. I thought didn't. We're going to hear this word a lot. Okay. She gave an okay performance. I liked her a lot in regards to this one other character, which we're going to get into later. But in terms of just a general performance, I thought it was okay. But anyway, she plays Danny Moonstar, a young Cheyenne Native American girl who is woken up by her dad in the middle of the night because, like, something's happening. What? I think it's a tornado. Oh, no, actually, no, it doesn't start there. It starts with, like, her narrating over a very rushed credit sequence. This is no like early X-Men mutants. They are the huge war evolution. This is not that sort of thing. It's just her talking about this old Native American proverb that's wormed its way into popular culture, except that they change it slightly. Danny in the movie goes like, "My father told me a story about these two bears, one containing all of your hopes and fears, the other one containing... No, one containing all your fears, one containing all your hopes." And it's just like, which one gets powerful? The one you feed the most. Except I always heard that as there are two wolves inside of you.
Tomorrowland.
Yeah, if this whole thing feels very appropriatory, but we won't get into that. But starts of that, tornado comes, everyone just gets blown about all over the place, and they start running away. And Dad's like, okay, you wait here in this tree, even though we've only walked like... I don't know, a couple of paces beyond the reservation. You should be fine here. I'm going to go back towards the danger rather than taking care of you, my only child. Bye-sy daisies! Oh, wait, I'm back, but I'm dead. And she runs away from a mysterious, somewhat demonic entity, only after being knocked unconscious, and she wakes up in a hospital, tied to a bed. She acts rather calmly towards this. I mean, she kind of drags the bed around before a doctor comes in, played by Alice Braga, Dr. Cecilia Reyes. Now, I did a bit of research on this character, and turns out this character is, in the comics, an X-Man. Well, sort of. She's affiliated with the X-Men, but she doesn't really have any interest in being a superhero and kind of prefers to live a normal life. But she's unequivocally a good guy. Not so in this movie, but we'll get into that.
So it's like
yeah, it's... I don't know if this was the direction that Alice Braga received, but she kind of does everything in her power to act in as... not in as creepy a way as possible, but I wouldn't fucking trust her. She's got Nurse Ratched vibes.
It's really weird, because obviously not to give her anything at the moment, but this hospital has no security guards. Nothing at all. It's down to this one person. Where's the janitor?
Yeah, and the reason what that's a very good point, actually. I mean, I guess the inmates, for want of a better word, clean up after themselves. We see them doing various domestic stuff, but it's a big place. Really, they're not gonna... I don't know. Anyway, but here's the thing. The reason why she's been left in charge is because she has
Ooh.
force field powers. Except, does she? But, well, I mean, she does. She clearly does by the end. But at the beginning, it's difficult to tell whether it's her powers or just like this futuristic tech that this place has installed inside of it. Like, it's got security cameras and listening devices all over the place. And I thought, like, wait, is she controlling the force fields through technology? Or is that her power? Like, they never say, do you have a power? Yes, I can do force fields. We never get a line like that in the movie. So, I mean, fair enough, they're not trying to spell it out for us, and it does become more apparent as the movie goes on. But I feel like they could have just said that right from the beginning, like, you don't know what it's like to not be in control of your powers. Well, actually, I do, because I've got powers, so I understand better than anyone what you're going through.
Yes.
Little things like that could have been so helpful, because at the moment, it's just distracting. But there's a scene after she unclips her from the bed when they're in like a study, and they're talking about how the reservation was destroyed, her father died, she was the only survivor, and she's here in this place. It's a hospital because they're worried that she's a danger to herself and to others, and she's going to be here for the foreseeable duration until, she gets control of her powers. However, that could be a very interesting conversation, and it's a mildly interesting conversation. However, it is framed with some of the most boring cinematography I have seen in recent years, because it's just them talking on like a little sofa sort of thing, and it's reverse shot for like 2 minutes. Just like shot of Danny talking, shot of Dr. Reyes talking, shot of Danny talking, Dr. Reyes talking, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. It's so mind-numbingly uninteresting to watch visually. I don't normally notice cinematography like that because I'm not that inclined. I'm more of a writing character kind of guy, but it really stood out to how amateurish it was. And it's weird because it's weird though because there wasn't. I mean, I didn't notice at least. Most of the cinematography for the rest of the movie was decent. It was okay. Let's go get a counter of how many times I say that word. So why is this one scene just like? Do they just give up? I don't know. I don't know. It was really, really boring. But then we get introduced to all the other characters. Samuel Sam Guthrie, played by, I don't know if that's how you say his name, played by Charlie Heaton. Ilyana Rasputin, aka Magic, played by, as I said earlier, Anna Taylor-Joy. Yeah.
It's like weird accents.
She clearly had fun. It's weird because, there's two versions of Colossus now in X-Men. Deadpool Colossus and non-Deadpool Colossus. Non-Deadpool Colossus does not have a Russian accent. Yeah, because he's a side character. Yeah. But, so clearly she's the younger sister of Deadpool Colossus. In which case, why is it... I don't know. Anyway, and... Oh, yeah, we've also got... Rain Sinclair, played by Maisie Williams, doing a half-decent Scottish accent. It's not too bad. Yeah. I've heard worse.
They cast Maisie Williams as a character who becomes a wolf. Also second Stark child to be in an X-Men movie. After Sophie Turner.
Oh, yes! Oh, no! Oh, no! Oh, God. And...
When's Bran showing up? No, Bran is Professor X.
Oh, jeez. Oh, Jesus. Oh, no.
Well, he is now.
Anyway, and also we got Roberto Bobby / Berto da Costa, aka Sunspot, played by Henry Zaga. Now, before we go into any further, one of the co-creators of the New Mutants, Bob McLeod, did not really like the movie. He said he didn't really represent the characters very well, including Roberto. And the reason why he said that he was whitewashed because Roberto in the comics is much darker skinned than Henry Zaga.
Right.
Now,
Henry Zaga's Brazilian.
here's the thing. The character is Brazilian and he is dark skinned. Henry Zaga is not dark skinned, but he is Brazilian. So, and this is the thing. This is not whitewashing. I'm sorry, Bob McLeod, but it's not whitewashing. What it is, if it is anything, is colorism. Now, a much smarter person than me could talk about colorism at great length. But that person is not me, so I'm not going to do that. I'm going to leave that to people who know much more about it. Having said that, it is something that is prevalent and can be quite nasty and damaging. And so I think Henry Zaga did an okay job. This is not against the actor. But considering the fact that the character is much darker skinned and was deliberately drawn that way, one might interpret the casting of Henry Zaga as a bit insulting. Again, I don't know. I'm not qualified to talk about this. I'm not going to. We don't need another white guy shoving his opinions into something that is not needed. So I'm just going to say that. Talks amongst yourself, capers. You can figure out for yourself whether you think it's bad or good. All I know is everyone I've talked to about colorism and everything I've heard about colorism indicates that it's not a good thing. So, but what it isn't, though, is whitewashing. Let's make that very clear. And to call it whitewashing is insulting to Henry Zaga. So we're not going to do that, okay?
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. Okay. And so, did I leave anyone out? That's it, isn't it?
That's the whole cast. That's 6 people.
That's the whole cast. And they're all there because they all lost control of their powers at one point or another and are there because they hope to one day get out. And that's not a bad premise for getting them all together. You know, they're all traumatized young teens in need of some good, hard, honest discipline.
What is this, a breakfast club for mutants?
Oh my god, could you just imagine that? No, imagine like an X-Men comic, but it's just like a bunch of young mutants in detention and it's framed just like the Breakfast Club. And the teacher is played by like Hank McCoy or something. I don't know.
That would be quite a fun move, quite a fun thing. The rest of the ball, young man, you'll get the horns. But I have horns, sir. That's not the point.
Don't you forget about Xavier. Don't. Anyway.
Actually, one thing I'd like to point out about this movie is that it does tackle the whole puberty equals mutant explosive power activation thingy and the trouble and trauma that comes with it. I thought they haven't really, apart from the first X-Men movie Rogue, they haven't really tackled that subject in great length before.
Yeah, that was something that was a common, to this day, undercurrent of X-Men comics. 99% of the time, with some notable exceptions, mutant powers manifested during puberty. The actual exception in this movie is Ilyana, aka Magic. I'm just going to call her Magic from now on because saying Ilyana sounds weird on my tongue. Ilyana.
Ilyana.
No disrespect to people named Ilyana, it's just hard for me to say. So Magic.
Yes.
And
Magic.
With a K because she's cool. Anyway, her powers manifested when she was much younger. Her whole backstory is, well, we're going to get into that.
We'll get to those.
And so we then get a couple of scenes with her getting to know people. It actually starts with Danny going up to a clock tower, basically thinking as she's so distraught with grief over her dad and everyone she knows dying and not being able to escape this place because there's a massive force field like a Stephen King novel. Just
domed.
Or I should have done the Simpsons movie. God. It's another Fox movie. Makes sense. The dome from the Simpsons movie gets put over this asylum place. And she doesn't want to be there, so she's about to commit suicide. But then Rain pokes her head down from the clock down. So it's like, hey, so maybe don't kill yourself for a bunch of reasons. And this is when we get to see, like, a lot of focus of this movie is focused on the relationship between Danny and Rain. And in fairness, the actors have great chemistry and the characters get on quite well because Rain is one of the more down to earth, much nicer characters compared to Magic, who could be respectfully described as a character you like to hate and disrespectfully described as a mutant Regina George. So I kind of like that. I like the fact that she's such a bitch because she completely owns it. And yeah, it's partially to cover up for her own trauma, but also she's just so sassy. And she has conversations, like snarky conversations, with a little puppet she has of Lockheed, the dragon. Finally, we get Lockheed the dragon in a movie, and he's a goddamn hand puppet. Not with Shadowcat, but with magic. You know what? Fuck it. Whatever.
Who cares?
Who cares?
Let's get what we can.
Yeah. And so they spend some time together, get to know each other, and get to know everyone else. And then we get a scene where like, a bunch of them are watching TV. It ends up with Magic and Danny having an argument, which leads to an altercation. They get solitary confinement in their rooms, which are more like cells, to be honest. It's a whole thing. But while this was going on, before that happened, there was a scene that Rain was watching from Buffy the Vampire Slayer when Willow and Tara kiss.
Their first kiss.
What, sorry?
The first kiss, and it was one of the major first lesbian kisses on television, so they're not exactly being subtle, this, are they?
Yeah, I was just like, is that? What's that in aid of? What's that foreshadowing? Because here's the thing. Danny and Rain are not gay in the comics. Maybe Danny is at some point because I'm not that familiar with the character, but as far as I'm aware, Rain, definitely not lesbian. She's in fact had multiple relationships with different men. So, but here's the thing. That's fine. You can absolutely make these characters gay. That is zero issue for me. Might become an issue if they ever decide to do a X Factor Investigations TV series / movie, which I would pay good money for. Get Peter David involved as a screenwriter or something, and I'm there. Take my money. But I was just like, is that what they're going for? What are they doing with that? But nevertheless to say, while that's going on, tensions are rising between the group, compounded by the fact that some of the people, starting with Sam, start to experience visions, hallucinations of some of the worst moments of their life, some of their worst nightmares. Sam has flashbacks to when his powers first activated, or his powers activated, and he brought down a whole mine on his dad and all the Kentucky miners that were there. So, yeah, that's not fun for him. Roberto is lured into the pool with magic, where it turns out it's not magic, but in fact illusion, which turns into his girlfriend, who accidentally burnt to death whilst making out.
Ouch.
Yeah, oh, God. And Rain also ends up later on in the movie getting flashbacks to... Okay, so we're going to have to talk about Rain's backstory. And this is something that's from the comics as well. Rain was from a sort of remote place in Scotland that had a strict Presbyterian culture and strict Presbyterian community where her powers led her to be shunned and called a witch and burned by this priest guy. And this has left her with a very, very strict Christian mindset. There's just a couple of problems with that. Some of which is the movie's fault, some of which is not the movie's fault. But here's the thing. Whilst there are some parts of Scotland that I imagine would be fairly religious, quite religious, Scotland, culturally speaking, is actually nowadays pretty goddamn secular. And whilst there is religion in Scotland, there is Christian religion, there is Presbyterianism, Protestantism. I don't know, it's been a while. In Scotland, it's not quite so extreme that members of the church would unironically denounce someone as a witch and try and brand them.
Yeah, I suppose it's kind of illegal.
Well, no, it's not the question of it's illegal. It's just the question of they wouldn't do that, even if it was legal. This is something I could see happening in more, and not wishing to stereotype, more rural places in America, where religion, especially in the Bible Belt, is scarily and fanatically strong. But for most of the UK, especially Scotland, it's just not that strong. But you know what? This is a movie where people fire at supersonic speeds and have magic swords. So maybe we shouldn't take that reality into, you know, into this one. Maybe we can just ignore that. And that is a fault of the comics, not just the movies. Here's the thing with the movie, though. Rain has that very strong Christian mindset, like he did in the comics. Which in the comics it led to her having these feelings of self-loathing and all sorts. It made for a very interesting character. And in the movie, she goes into an empty church that's on the grounds and confesses to a priest that isn't there. And one of the things she confesses is that she masturbates. Okay, makes sense. Profoundly religious person would view that as a sin, even though it's fucking not. It's a perfectly normal, healthy thing that people do. And it's a normal thing if you don't want to do it, but it's not a sin either way. And the reason why I bring this up is because she clearly has that strong... I mean, earlier in the movie, she tells Danny when she's about to commit suicide that suicides go to hell. It's a big thing for her, and yet... later on, when it is revealed that in fact she is gay, she shows absolutely zero hang-ups about being gay. So she's from an extremely Christian, extremely religious culture that leads her to believe that masturbating is a sin, but has absolutely no hang-ups about being gay whatsoever. I find that suspect.
Well, obviously I'm not gay or Christian, so I suppose if you're kind of
me neither. So
I suppose if you're kind of caught in that tangled web of emotions and responsibilities, and whether or not you're sacrilegious for loving someone, I suppose you can, and plus she's also discovered she can transform into a wolf, which is another layer on top of it. So it may be for her she's kind of in a very deep sense of confliction, and perhaps through her time in this place and her mutation, she is trying to figure out what she wants to do in her life and who she should be. Because she's Christian, she's a mutant, she's
maybe, but I mean that.
So you have a layer, and there's another layer you have to kind of unpack. It's there's so many layers. Please stop. She's like an onion. Mutants are like onions.
Maybe, but I just felt like it kind of did the character with this new edition, and it is a new edition. Let's not forget a bit of I don't know, disrespect, because there are Christian people who are also gay who have these hang-ups because I keep on calling it hang-up. Let's call it what it is: trauma. It's trauma inflicted by a church that has demonized these people who have done absolutely nothing wrong and are perfectly normal and natural. And I'm trying to avoid the phrase realistic, because that's a stupid phrase to use when critiquing a movie. Especially in a movie that's about people with laser vision eyes. I don't know. I feel like that was an extra layer, as you said, that could have been explored, but it wasn't.
It didn't go deep enough.
Not for me. Having said that, one thing that made up for it was, as I said, the great chemistry between Danny and Rain. And it culminates in them sneaking out of the building at night, to go lie in a cemetery, which is very on brand for Buffy.
Yeah, who's like, why are there so many graves at this weird hospital? Like, what? Are these all dead kids? Like, what's going on?
Oh, who knows? It may have been before it was converted into a place for mutants.
Maybe.
Who knows? But here's the thing: the dome is constantly there, and then it starts to rain. And when the rain hits the dome, when anything physical hits the dome, it sort of lights up. And it creates this, honestly, fucking beautiful visual effect.
Mm-hmm.
Sort of lighting up the night sky all red and orange and stuff. And they're lying down to each other. They're quite close. They look into each other's eyes. It's romantic as fuck, is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
I actually really love that scene.
Yeah.
It's really, really beautiful, and it helps that these characters have had such great chemistry. They got to know each other, and they've kind of started supporting each other. The actors are really great. And then they kiss, and just like, oh, it's so lovely.
Because this is, to my knowledge, this is actually the first lesbian kiss in a superhero movie.
Really?
Yeah, I may be wrong, but I think that it's the first superhero kiss between lesbians.
Didn't Negasonic Teenage Warhead and Yukio kiss in Deadpool 2? Or am I remembering that wrong?
I didn't recall them kissing. I may be wrong, but I don't know. This feels, plus to both X-Men films, they're doing quite well.
I will have to do some more research into that.
Yes.
Capers, get on it.
This is a semi-historical moment in superhero films.
Well, in any case, I'm just glad that it happened between two characters I actually like and actually kind of wanted to get together, even though I knew, wait, those characters aren't gay. Oh, but they're so cute together. I can't help it. I ship it.
Yeah. Right, so there's I think my favourite shot in the whole film is when they first introduce all the characters, and Danny comes into the room and Rain just kind of stares at her in utter, I don't know what's the word I'm looking for. Entrancement. She's like, this is the most beautiful person I've ever seen in my life. It's like, oh, I know what's going on here.
Yeah, and so
it's so cute.
It is very, very cute. And when that is going on, I mean, here's the thing. This movie is an hour and a half. Actually, not that much happens in it. We're pointing out key moments, and there's lots of cool. Here's the thing, though. The reason why I don't think this movie is bad is because while not a lot happens in it, the stuff that does happen is often pure character-driven stuff. We're finding out more about these characters, their thoughts, their feelings, their motivations, and you might find that not very interesting, or in fact, completely interesting, whatever, but it is character-focused, and I always appreciate that, especially in an X-Men movie where chances are you only focus on one or two, maybe three characters if you're lucky, and the rest are just background characters just there to fill up space. So for an X-Men movie to actually focus quite heavily on 5 characters, 6 if you include Dr. Reyes, that's actually rather good. I like this sort of more low-key, character-driven sort of stuff. And unfortunately, though, the nightmares get much more vivid, much more real, until these things called Smile Men.
It's the Slender Man. That's what it is.
It's every single internet horror meme come to life. And also there was another scene from fucking Buffy the Vampire Slayer, that episode
Hush,
featuring the Hush, the smiling gentleman.
Second best episode of Buffy.
It's one of the best episodes of Buffy ever made. It's a fucking phenomenal thing. But they include that as well, and it's just like you're not even being subtle about what you're taking inspiration from movie. I get it, Boone. You're a big Buffy fan, clearly.
Well, I think Buffy's owned by Fox, so there you go. Grr, arg.
Probably. Yeah. I just like the fact that we've got another superhero thing relating to Joss Whedon that isn't bad.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
We're not going to go down that rabbit hole.
Nope. We're going down another rabbit hole instead.
And it becomes much more clear that... Because here's the thing. All this is happening, Dr. Reyes has been observing Danny by measuring her psionic levels, which is a thing now. And it turns out that she's been working for... the Essex Corporation. Wow, that means that this is the 3rd movie where we get mentions of the Essex Corporation, but no Mr. Sinister. Fuck you.
Just give us him and his weird cape.
Not even that. You can just do an updated version of Mr. Sinister. You don't even have to call him Mr. Sinister. Just call him Nathaniel Essex. I don't care. He's like one of the most hardcore X-Men villains, and you're not going to show him. You've been teasing this for 3 movies now. We're not going to get any more Fox X-Men movies, so you had the opportunity, and you blew it! You fucking blew it!
Stop it, Disney!
Anyway, so she's been in communication with the Essex Corporation this whole time, and it turns out that they want her to harvest Danny's DNA and then euthanize her. Oh boy.
She's evil. What a surprise.
Well, that's the thing, is you see on Dr. Race's face a little bit of hesitation. It's like, ooh, but I've gotten to know Danny. She's an alright kid. She doesn't mean any harm. So anyway, then she goes to tries to kill her. Yeah, she hesitates, but then... And I actually kind of like that. I like the audience to think like, ooh, this character who's been trying to be a good influence, and she's a bit snarky and a bit mean to these kids, but she has shown that she's trying to help them at least. Is she going to turn out to be a good person and maybe want to help the kids escape? Nope, she fervently believes in the cause of the Essex Corporation, whose, honestly, mission statement I'm not that certain of. They want to make, like, mutant super soldiers or something? I don't know. But then she sedates Danny and is about to euthanize her. Rain catches onto this, and she goes, like, full-on Wolverine, half wolf, half person sort of thing, and fucking slashes her up. And here's the thing. Up until that point, the scary parts honestly haven't been that scary. I'm not a horror fan, so I'm quite sensitive to being frightened in movies, even in non-horror films. This is the fucking tamest horror movie I've ever seen in my life. Like, even the bits with the smile men just aren't that scary to me. Maybe you were scared, Capers. I don't know. Were you scared, Mark?
Well, the fact that these guys look like a mix of the Slender Man and something from Silent Hill, there was a slight, who are these weirdos type of thing. They're like, they're grinning like idiots. They're kind of like chasing after them with, because they're not going to harm the kids because they all need to survive. So it's like, okay, they're semi creepy. You've got Macy Williams scratching up a guy's face, but she's not going to get killed in that way. It's like, slightly scary, but not going to hardcore horror.
No, and here's the thing: when I first heard about this movie, I thought, ooh, it looks all horror and creepy. Like, remember that poster?
Yeah,
where it's like just this white sheet with all the faces peering out of them?
Yeah, screaming.
Very screaming.
Yeah, very Freddy Krueger-ish.
I thought this was going to be a movie where they're going to kill off a couple of them. Like, maybe they throw Warlock in there and he gets snuffed again. But no, they all, spoiler alert, Capers, they all make it out alive, safe and sound for the most part. And it's... There's no real tension. And honestly, the Smile Men themselves, they look kind of creepy the first time you see them, but then you see them way too clearly, in too much light, way too often, and you lose all fear of them. Completely nutty. And it doesn't help the fact that they look like Stranger Things, rejected concepts.
Yeah, the weird thing is, according to the cast list, they're voiced by Marilyn Manson.
Oh, yeah, that's fucking bizarre to see in the credits.
Okay. Like, Marilyn Manson's here. Ugh.
Yeah, bear in mind, no one finds Marilyn Manson scary either.
Apart from the won't someone think of the Children Brigade? Because they thought he was.
Yeah, but they're scared of their own shadows, so they're not a good.
Our shadows are Satanists.
They're not a good barometer for what's scary and what's not. And and I was fine with that because I was here for the character and the character's journey, and I found that satisfying enough. But for people who came to see a horror film, I imagine this would be really disappointing. I think that might be why this movie has such low scores, because it's marketed as a horror movie. And I don't know for certain, but you have to imagine that this is because the studio interfered. Because, people can't handle like an R-rated scary superhero movie, except they can because they've done that. You have done that with Deadpool, you fucking moron.
And Logan.
God.
We've got nominated for an Academy Award, so there you go.
I mean, how many times do these movies have to be successful before you realise that they can be successful, Fox? What's wrong with you? This is why you got fucking bought out by the mouse, who take even less risks than you do. Morons.
Now we're gonna fucking castrate you! Oh
wait, no, we can't castrate you because that'd be too violent. We're going to send you to the timeout zone! Anyway,
I thought I had issues.
They figure out that Danny is the one that's causing all these problems, which leads to a bit of tension. Magic is really not happy about that, as her childhood trauma is I guess, particularly bad.
Yeah, actually, I wanted to ask you about that. I'm very confused about Magic's
Join the
backstory.
fucking club.
Unfortunately, so she's like, she killed 16 people, and then she can jump into hell, and then Slender Man comes to hang out with her, and Lockheed turns into a real dragon, and she's got the Full Metal Alchemist arm with the magic sword. What?
Yeah,
She's a
she has
witch.
one of the most interesting characters, but her backstory gets explored exactly nil. They show stuff from it, but they don't explain anything. I kept on waiting for the scene where she just sort of broke down and explained her tragic life, but no, we don't get that. I mean,
Yeah, and if she is related to Colossus, where is he?
yeah, and I want to.
If they're siblings, why is he not? Why is she not? If she is Colossus's sister in the canon of this movie, why the fuck isn't she at the X Mansion? What's Colossus doing? Too busy practicing his
Just
accent
like
again?
Professor X just walks in on Colossus, well, rolls in on Colossus. I'm so sorry. That's the worst joke I've ever made in my life. He goes into Colossus and just like, oh, Peter, I say, don't you have any family that you might like to visit you or you to visit? It's like, no. I mean, I have sister, but she can go fuck herself. She's got terrible wig.
I also have brother. I don't know if that's canon or not. Actually, that's weird. So he has I don't know, I think it's Nikolai or something like that. His brother can jump across dimensions. His sister has magic powers, and he has metal skin. It's a lottery with these people.
And yeah, here's the thing, magic in the comics is really fascinating. She was a little girl and who did have a very good relationship with Colossus, but then she got kidnapped and transported to this extra-dimensional plane called Limbo, where she was raised by demons, and because time works differently in that place, when she arrived back in our reality, she was almost fully grown and had magic powers and a soul sword and a bunch of other stuff, and she was kind of grimdark, and it was like, I've lost my little sister who I knew so well and was so sweet, and now she's this slightly dark, brooding person, and none of that is represented in this movie. None of it. And the character is fine. It's just purely in terms of backstory, it's a missed opportunity. But anyway, they realized, okay, you know what? So the gang all band together, go to Reyes' office, and discover loads and loads of files about them and how... See, Reyes has been talking about how this is an extra program beyond the facility that they can go to when she feels they're ready. Turns out that facility is just another place where they're going to brainwash them and turn them into super soldiers or something like that. But here's the thing, they show that by showing video clips from fucking Logan. Yeah. It's like, it was blatant, like...
I think they actually are like connecting together. Essex Corporation is behind the Weapon X program and what they were doing in Logan. But again, that brings up, so where does this take place in the timeline? Which timeline are we in?
I don't fucking know, and I don't think the movie knows. So they decide, you know what, screw it, we're gonna get out of here. I can't believe we didn't try this earlier. But they realize, Reyes is controlling the force field, so we need to hunt her down. They hunt her down, but then she uses the force fields on them, trying to crush them. But then then this thing is summoned. The true manifestation of Danny's fears and nightmares. It is the Demon Bear.
Voiced by Nicolas Cage.
I believed you for a second there. just another bear Nicolas Cage. Rah! I'm the Demon Bear. I can't do the days are day the teddy bears have the picnic.
We just need to scream insanely.
Read it at the top! Anyway. So...
Oh, yeah.
So the Demon Bear fucking eats Reyes.
It's like hilarious. It's like when the dragon eats little Farquaad in Shrek.
It's kind of like that. But just...
Only you can stop forest fires.
And so they all have to now fight the Demon Bear.
Giant bear.
And Ileana does this by summoning like her magic sword / arm, which looks very cool. I will say that's a very good effect. And then her hand puppet of Lockheed turns into an actual dragon. You might think, is that going to be referenced or explained in any way? Nope.
But who cares? It's
I
fucking
care
Lockheed.
because they imply in the movie, they don't explain it, but they imply that Lockheed is a demon dragon. He's not. He's an alien dragon. How dare you?
Puppet. He's a talking puppet alien dragon.
He does not
From another
talk,
dimension.
though. Well, he does
No, he
talk,
doesn't
but
talk.
not in an alien language.
No, he just makes it dragon noises.
Yeah, that's his alien language. I don't know. But, and I imagine, like, okay, so I know who Lockheed is. You know who Lockheed is. But anyone who does not know what Lockheed is going to be really fucking confused by that.
Yeah, again, it can also tie into Magic's abilities, because obviously, like you said in her comic backstory, she's taken literally to another dimension. What I got here is that her powers are kind of imagination-based. Because from what they sound like, that she goes to a happy place, which is this place called Limbo, and there's these people here who wear funny masks, and it's kind of like transforms into hell for her. So like, okay, so she's got imagination-based powers. Nope, she's a witch. Okay then, carry on.
I don't know, it's out of nowhere. And so they fight the Demon Bear thing, using their powers and working together. Rain kicks all kinds of... Maisie Williams goes full feral. She channels Daphne Keane, actually, a little bit in Savage Swipes. Although I will say, the choreography could be better. Just like her going slash, slash. I mean, she goes for it. Gives 100%. But just kind of slashing it a little bit. It's not that impressive. I don't like...
She's fighting a giant bear.
I really don't like Cannonball's effect when he cannonballs, because it happens so fast and the camera just doesn't really follow him that well. It might...
Camera's like, wait,
it might as well be a teleporting effect. I mean, I get that he flies really, really fast, and there is a scene earlier in the movie where he straps himself to a giant concrete block and just sort of zooms around whilst attached to a chain, and that was pretty cool.
It reminded me of the scene from The Iron Giant where he's in the car. We're landing!
It's kind of like that, yeah. But and there's a bit where Sunspot controls his powers, because his whole thing is that he can't control his powers. He's afraid of burning people. And there's a scene actually where he's by the pool and he's on fire and he's screaming in rage and pain. And Ray is just like...
That was a good reveal.
What, sorry?
That was a good reveal for his powers. It
was a good reveal, but then Reyes takes like one of those nets for pools and just sort of prods him into the water. It was kind of anticlimactic.
Yeah, you think the pool had like been boiling or something? That would have been quite dramatic.
Yeah. But anyway, so they all use their powers. He controls his powers, looking more like his character does, because his character in the comics, he gets like sort of fire around him, but his body sort of turns like this sort of black sort of fire sort of thing, and it's a pretty cool effect, actually. It's all right. Ilyana and Lockheed kick some ass. Danny manages to calm down the demon bear and brings it to rest. I don't know, it's that bullshit.
You're now a Care Bear.
Yep, the force field goes, Dawn creeps up, and they're just like, okay, apparently Reyes said that the next town was like 20 miles away. Let's find out if it really is. And they head out together, and I am left with a profound sense of, it's all right.
It's all right.
It's all right. I mean, there's really not much more we can say about it. It's all right. It's absolutely 100% fine. It's not a waste of your time, but like we said, there's no real rush to go and see it. And that's what's weird about it. This is the end of the X-Men franchise, and it ends not with a bang, not even with a whimper, but just with kind of nothing.
Well, Dark Phoenix was the whimper.
Dark Phoenix was the whimper, actually. This is the post-mortem last breaths of air escaping. And here's the thing. At the end of the movie, I kind of realised, do you know what I'd like to see? Even in TV form, film form, or even comic book form, a road trip movie with these characters. Going out to find other mutants, find their place, and survive in a world that hates and fears them. I found that I actually kind of like these characters. Rain being all shy, but also sweet. Ilyana being a bitch. Sam being worried about his powers. Roberto also worrying about his powers, but trying to cover it up with a layer of machismo. Danny also being there. Honestly, she had the kind of the least interesting character in the entire movie. In fact, in terms of when the credits show up, a bunch of people get mentioned before she does, even though you could argue she's the main character. It is a point against the movie's favor. I mean, I like the actor playing her, like I said, but I just thought the character wasn't all there. And I thought I'd like to see them pile into an RV or something and go out on a big Trans-America voyage. That's what I'd like to see. Not this movie per se.
Well, if they probably won't, but if they consider to put the New Mutants into whatever plans they have for X-Men, maybe we'll get to see them again. And hopefully not wait another 4 years.
I fucking doubt it. Considering the critical review of this movie, I doubt it. And also, I believe it has a budget of... Wikipedia puts the budget between 65 and 80 million. So far at the box office, at time of recording, it's made 20 million. So... It's not done well. Let me put it this way. And which is to be expected, because... A, the production problems, B, the fact that it emerged to no fanfare, C, that it emerged in the middle of a pandemic. But I wouldn't be surprised if they use that as an excuse to never mention any of these characters again. And...
Which is a shame, because I think there's potential.
Yeah, there is potential here. And,
we're all still young.
You know, Josh Boone has said that he wants to do sequels, but that's looking less and less likely. I don't know. It's just... Would I like to see these characters again? Sure, but that's like saying I would like a cheeseburger. I don't need a cheeseburger. I don't even feel any great desire for a cheeseburger. If someone offered me a cheeseburger right now, I'd be like, yeah, okay. But I'm not going to go out and try and get a cheeseburger right now. Have you seen McDonald's these days? God.
It has cheeseburger. Okay.
Never use that voice again. So, and honestly, I think, despite the very negative review scores, I think most people are coming around to the fact that this movie is just okay. And again, that's fine. It doesn't have to be perfect. It doesn't have to be brilliant. It doesn't even have to be that good. It just has to be not bad. And it's not bad. There are some things that aren't fully explored. That may be down to the 94-minute runtime. It's literally an hour and a half. That's about as bare bones a movie as you can get. At least these days, I've seen movies that are like 80 minutes or so, and that's fucking rough. At least it's not that bad. But you know, they do explore the characters a bit, and the characters are nice, and I like their dynamics. And it's fine. It's just fine. I hope what comes out of this is that more people start reading the X-Men comics and the New Mutant comics and get a great appreciation for these characters. I'd like to see Maisie Williams again as Rain. I'd love that. Maisie Williams, like a couple of people like blasted Maisie Williams
for what?
online for the movie, and she was by saying like it's this, it's that, it's the other, and she's like, wow, sounds awesome. I've got my ticket. In typical Maisie Williams fashion, I'm paraphrasing quite a bit, but it's typical Maisie Williams. I fucking love her. But here's the thing, so I know Josh Boone really wanted to make this movie, right? But the other things he's directed were the movie Stuck in Love and The Fault in Our Stars. Neither which I watched either. And he's also written Stuck in Love, All We Had, and The Pretenders. This is very different from what he's usually done. He is going to do the upcoming... We mentioned Stephen King earlier. He's doing a miniseries based on The Stand, one of Stephen King's biggest books. And I mean that both in terms of the impact it had and also the size. I've got it. Okay. It's fucking massive. I've only got like halfway through it, and I've been trying to read it for about a year. And so... I don't know. I feel like I just feel like this movie's just... I don't want to use the word lackluster because that implies no effort was put into it, and that's not the case. But that's kind of what it feels, and that's part of what makes it work, because it's smaller scale, the stakes are a lot lower, and it's more character focused. It works in its favor. But I feel like that might contribute to the fact that this is an X-Men movie, a superhero movie, like, this could have worked 10 years ago. This could have worked 20 years ago. But now, with the MCU and everything the way it is, we're expecting much more out of our superhero films, for something much more low-key to come about. Like, to put it this way, we reviewed Project Power a while ago, and that movie had far more stakes, far more action, and just far much more going on in it than this did. And that was a Netflix movie.
Yes.
So, yeah, I mean, honestly, But so let's talk about well, we talked about the actors, we talked about their performances, we talked about the characters, talked about the plot, talked about the cinematography even. Fucking hell, I'm struggling to think of anything else to talk about this movie. I made a bunch of notes, but I've run through them all talking about this.
Well, I suppose we could ponder on what the future is for the X-Men movie, since it's not going to get a reboot.
Well, here's the thing. I kind of don't want to do that because well, I do and I don't, because here's the thing. One thing I've noticed regarding superhero movies, TV shows, and the internet is that people speculate, quite rightly, about what's next, what's going to happen next. And I feel like this limits options for people making these sorts of things. In fairness, I've done that on this show, so maybe I'm part of the problem. But I feel like people either they do something, either they guess correctly, the filmmakers then do that thing that they guessed, and it sort of lessens the impact of the story, or they desperately try and figure out a way to keep the audience guessing, subvert expectations, and then it ends up turning out kind of weird.
Star Wars.
Yeah, exactly. That's probably the most egregious example of that. Well, that's a combination of them trying to subvert expectations and also trying to give the audience exactly what they asked for because they're so terrified of their own franchise. Fucking hell.
Good God.
Not going down that rabbit hole. But so, I mean, a lot of people have assumed that in the upcoming Doctor Strange movie featuring Scarlet Witch, they're going to open up the multiverse and bring the mutants to the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Maybe they will, maybe they won't. I don't know. In terms of the future, I mean,
We'll have to wait and see.
I'm more interested in looking back. I'm interested in looking back at 20 years of X-Men movies. Because the first one came out in
20 years ago.
It came out year 2000. And we don't want to go too heavy into detail because I think we have done a retrospective on the X-Men at one point.
Mm-hmm.
But honestly, looking back, the X-Men franchise wasn't that great. Maybe that's hindsight. Maybe that's because we've got something different now with the MCU. But X-Men, that first movie, had a lot of great ideas, great acting performances, but didn't really have quite the impact that I think a lot of people wanted to have. X2 had a much greater impact. A lot of people said it was much better, but recent analyses have shown that the cracks kind of are there. Characters get pushed to the side. Cyclops. And again, it felt like another Wolverine movie. Compounded even further by The Last Stand, which tried to be Dark Phoenix.
Too many things.
Wolverine. The Cure storyline from Joss Whedon's run in Astonishing X-Men, and topping off Wolverine's story, further compounded by being followed by a standalone Wolverine movie, which we won't mention my name because of that noise you're making. First Class, which everyone...
Speak for itself.
Yeah, everyone seems to love First Class.
I suppose because it's more aligned towards the classic X-Men comics. It's more, well, X-Men-y.
Yeah, and I have to... It's a very, very good movie, but it has significant flaws. I think get overlooked. I mentioned that last episode when I talked about black superheroes in film and the portrayal of Darwin in that movie.
Oh god, they call him Darwin and they killed him.
It go back and listen to that other episode, Capers, to get my full feelings on that. And also January Jones. What the fuck was January Jones doing in that movie? She can't act. I mean, I'm sure she was fine in Mad Men, but whatever. Then it was followed by The Wolverine,
I
which
like
a lot
that.
of people. Here's the thing: a lot of people don't like that. I like
I
that.
love it. I think it's a great film.
I don't love it, but I think it was a perfectly decent Wolverine movie. I kind of hope that it was going to be much closer to the Wolverine solo series that was set in Japan. That actually has been adapted one or two times. There was a Wolverine anime that
Oh
followed
yeah,
it
yeah.
fairly closely, kind of. And I kind of hoped that they would do something close to that. But I thought it was a pretty decent movie, followed by Days of Future Past,
Great.
which I think is excellent.
Me too. And if it did throw out the half of the first class cast.
Yeah, it has its own problems. Followed by Apocalypse, which was meh. Followed by Dark Phoenix, which was double meh.
Jennifer Lawrence looking for the nearest exit for 2 movies.
And then Logan, which is one of the best superhero movies ever made. So it's been a fucking wild ride, and that's not even going into Deadpool.
who is confirmed to apparently Reynolds is going to make it into whatever version comes in the future.
Well, Deadpool is immortal. You can't kill him. So
Yeah, you know what I mean.
I know. And so it's been a huge mixed bag. But you know what? Maybe you could say that this is, even though there is a bit of a crossover, bit of a Venn diagram between, the MCU and the X-Men, you could argue that it's the blueprint for the MCU. They learnt from it, they expanded upon it, and from both its successes and its mistakes. Do you think?
Yeah, I think I can agree because X-Men was the first. I suppose I would, its own cinematic universe in a way before Iron Man came along. So there were, and Spider-Man as well kind of had influence on it. So in a way, it's kind of like is front runner the correct term for it or forerunner?
Forerunner would definitely be the correct term.
Yeah, it's the
I
correct
mean, it
term.
doesn't help that most of the recent X-Men, including this movie actually, most of the recent X-Men properties have been stuff that's done post X-Men the team, where they're all dead or unavailable. I'm looking at you, The Gifted. I mean, that
Yeah.
movie, that show, I completely checked out of that show by the end of the first season.
I only watched the pilot because David asked me to review it.
It's
I can finally put Polaris in there. I wanted to see Polaris for a long time, but there's no, she's completely and utterly detached from Magneto, and her siblings are unavailable.
It's sort of like the D-list X-Men that no one cares about, and it's so boring and so grimdark, and I hated the kid in it, like the teenage kid that's made for the show.
Yeah, they were annoying.
I didn't mind the teenage girl so much, but she wasn't a very good character. But she wasn't at least she wasn't annoying. But that kid was so fucking annoying. It just completely turned me off from it. And then there's Legion, which I watched the first season of, and I thought like, okay, this is really cool and quirky and experimental and all that sort of stuff. But I don't need to see any more of this. I don't care if there's a second season. Like, I get it. I get Legion. I don't need to see any more. I'm all good. Thanks, Legion. You gave me. There's 3 seasons actually.
I watched none of it.
Yeah, there's only 3 seasons. So the 3rd season was the final one, but I only cared to watch the first one. And because here's the thing, X-Men. It's such a branching, nebulous, all-encompassing. I don't want to use the word franchise. Team. There's dozens upon dozens upon dozens upon dozens of these characters, most of whom could have their standalone stories. You could make a story, a full movie about just Jubilee or Shadowcat or Bishop. Any one of these things, like smaller ones, like say Domino and people like that, and a few of the New Mutants. You can put in movies together, but you could do a Gambit movie, a Rogue movie, a Storm movie. You could do that, and trying to cram all these characters together. It's very, very difficult, much more so than Avengers.
Because with X-Men and the Brotherhood, they have the standard groups there, but as you expand more, you have more diverse characters who can probably carry their own movies and can't really fit in with either one of those camps.
Yeah. I don't know. So it's X-Men was one of the trickiest things to ever adapt. So in many ways, we should take it as a fucking blessing that we got as many good stories out of them as we did, even though we could pretty much boil that down to not including Deadpool. About 4. The Wolverine, Logan, First Class, Days of Future Past. That's it. The only equivocally good movies with maybe New Mutants hanging on as just meh. It's just
middle
meh.
of the road, as you said.
Middle of the road, and to some people that might be a deal breaker. They just can't stand to watch a middle of the road movie, but honestly, I can. I'm not gonna have any great need to go back to it, but it's fine. And this movie will be forgotten about. It's one of those movies that it's going to get forgotten about, and that's okay. Maybe we'll see the characters again, maybe we won't, but either way, it's no great loss, which means you can watch this movie, have no attachment to it, and leave it, and just get on with your life. And honestly, considering the fact that we've got so many movies nowadays that, yes, are brilliant, but also are so bad that we can't stop thinking about them, Last Skywalker, it haunts my soul to this day. Frankly, at this point, an okay movie is a fucking blessing from the gods. Anything else you want to talk about this movie?
No, I think I'm done.
In that case, I think we're going to end it there. Thank you very much, Mark, for joining me today.
Next time, we shall reflect on another movie.
Oh, God. And if you enjoy the show, Capers, please tell your friends, shout it from the rooftops. And if you haven't already, go back and listen to some of our other super episodes, or every other episode we've done about X-Men. There's more than a few. You can listen to the show on iTunes, Podbean, YouTube, Spotify, or at podcapers.com. If you want to get in touch with us, suggest show topics, or maybe come on the show yourself, you can find us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at APTRHYC. Thank you very much to Dan Harris for our logo, the lovely microphone, the red and blue 3D glasses, those are mine. And thank you for listening. This has been Pod Capers, the official podcast for a place to hang your cape. Cue the music!